There's a piece of advice out there for a lot of women that basically says, in order to be happy in a marriage, your man has to love you more than you love him. And honestly, in the sense of survival, it makes sense. But there's a piece missing to this. Because that works for survival, but that does not work for true love. In fact, if you don't love someone with every fiber of your being, and they don't love you with every fiber of their being, you've got a mismatch. True love is two wings on one bird, which is what my dear friend and mentor Annie Lala says. Basically, if one wing is stronger than the other, the bird is going to veer into the ground. So you need it to be equal, which means that the love has to be there on equal sides. They have to love you and be all in, and you have to love them and be all in. But there's also wisdom in this piece of advice. Because, yes, there is something about having someone absolutely in love with you and be like, you are my ride or die. And at the same time, there needs to be some level of detachment. It can't be always wanting to be together, and it can't always be distance. Light and dark, closeness, and individuality. If you are too dependent on someone, you become codependent, which sadly a lot of relationships are. One person is like, I can't live without you, and the other person is like, I can do better. But I'm choosing to stay with you as a favor because honestly, I just don't have the energy to leave. In toxic situations, this can end up looking really bad. I used to be codependent. I'm not anymore. In fact, I have become very independent. And I'm at the point now where I'm looking forward to becoming interdependent. But there was a time when I'm like, I can't live without someone. I need to have someone. And this person that I'm with is good enough. And it's all I can get. And therefore I should just make it work no matter what. So where did this piece of advice that's being given to women come from? Well, if you look back into history, what was marriage typically for? I mean, even in Bridgerton, yes, they have love matches, but that is not society. Marriage was a business transaction. And women got the short end of the stick. We were bought and sold. We were paid for, we were property. We can't ignore that just because we've had a modern society and we now have this idea of love. We can't ignore the past. We can't sugarcoat the past. It was really bad for women. And I've said this in other videos as well, and you can always go check out my YouTube channel, Carly Bonderud Uncensored, links in the bio. I have my link tree. But the thing you really need to understand here is that we were in an unequal society. And you can get all bent out of shape over feminism and patriarchy and all that, all you want. The reality is that women, we have a value that is just, without us, there's no survival. We give birth. In order for a society to function and for humans to exist, women must exist. And back in the time when some men, and I'm pretty sure there were some that were in a position of power and had no empathy, and they abused it. They recognized that a woman's power of her body could be used for their own advantage. Enter a whole bunch of stories about how a woman's power is only in her body and her ability to bear children, and once she can't bear children anymore, she's completely useless. So let's go trade in another one. Because once you stop bearing children, you're dried up, you're useless. I mean, how many people on the internet, mostly unevolved men, and I say unevolved because I have so many evolved men in my life, so many friends, so many father figures, so many grandfather figures, so many uncles, so many brothers, that I now know that men can rise up, that they are powerful, that they are incredible human beings, that we can learn from each other. And they have insights, and they have that protection and that reverence. A truly evolved man is not threatened by a powerful woman. He is in awe of her. He is in reverence of her. He will support her. And he won't do it from a place of what he can get from her. He will do it from a place of her inspiring him. Even if that's seeing her as his daughter. I mean, my dear friend and mentor, Donald Stojak, has even said that I am pretty much his adopted daughter. So if you've been seeing Donald Stojak on and commenting and liking my stuff, yeah, of course. He's a proud dad, and he's proud of his daughter. And I'm proud of him too, and I'm going to support the hell out of him and everything he's doing because he's an awesome dad. I support my biological dad who raised me too. There are amazing men out there. And at the same time, we do have to recognize that men have grown up in a world that was made for them. And men have also been taught that a lot of their value comes from the woman that's beside them. How hot is she? What can she do for you? How many kids have you got? Does she take care of the home? Like, there were so many things that would make a woman valuable that was tied only to her domesticity, and her brain was not important. I mean, how many times do you hear it's like, well, she doesn't need to talk. She just needs to look pretty. She just needs to be my arm candy. Like, bonus. If she's smart, that's like a bonus, but I just need her to be arm candy, and she can't be smarter than me. So if you go back into history, it was advantageous for women to hide their intelligence. Even Marilyn Monroe says it. She's like, I can be smart, but most men don't like it. Well, I grew up seeing that my intelligence and wit was often not appreciated because I was very smart and I was not afraid to put people in their place. Part of that was because I grew up in a house of boys. When you grow up in a masculine household, you have to be able to hold your own. Like, my dad and my brother still rip on me. And the thing is like, I could rip on them back, and I have, but I also always knew that if I said the thing that would really hurt, the game wouldn't be fun anymore. So, when you recognize that women were not valued for their intelligence, and in fact, there were certain rules in society that said women shouldn't even be allowed to read, women shouldn't be allowed to teach, they are only good in the home. Don't you dare let your daughter learn how to read, because if she learns how to read, she'll never get a man. And what's the most valuable thing? Is having your daughter married off to some wealthy person who then benefits you. So It was advantageous to keep women ignorant of their sexuality. It was advantageous to keep them ignorant of their intelligence. It was advantageous to say that all they were good for was baby machines. But at the same time, women were taught a game too. Women were taught the game of making sure that a man was completely devoted to them and has to love you more than you love him. Because the second it sounds like he loves you less, if you start to be like, no, I can't lose him, you're going to end up screwed over. So it was like, you always have to keep that heart closed. You can't fall in love with your husband. You can play the game, you can show your value, but he has to be so devoted to you that even if you went and did something, had a lover, that he would still take care of you. Because if he doesn't love you more than you love him, he's going to replace you with a younger model or several. I mean, you can pretend all you want, but we all know the stories of the rich, successful men in the past and even in the present. I mean, you see them, where you've got that doting, loving wife, but she's getting on in years, and guess who's with the secretary or the assistant? And before that, it would be the maid. How often do you hear the maid stereotype? I mean, there's French maid costumes. The professor who happens to have the younger student that he's also got on the side. And we look at the women as the problem, the homewrecker. And we forget that the man is doing the pursuing. And in the unequal society, we also are like, oh, we can't say no. If I say no to my boss's advances, even though I know he's married, I might lose my job. If I say no to my professor, he might fail me. If I say no to that powerful man, he might destroy my reputation. Actresses are coming out about this. Women who were interning for powerful men are coming out about this. I remember the whole scandal way back in the 90s, and I don't need to name names. I mean, there's jokes, there's cartoons about it. We all know which president and which intern. But there's two sides to that. Taylor Swift says it best. It's like, I'd be playing the field and I'd be the man. Like in her song, The Man. I'm sick of running as fast as I can. Wonder if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. Exactly. And it's true. Because I've actually had a glimpse of what that might have looked like. And I've always kind of had that insight anyway, that the way that men are valued is how many women they can get, how hot that woman is, how much that woman is subservient, and how much money they have, how they use that money, how they throw that money around. And it's, for a woman, do you have a husband? Do you have kids? Well, if you don't have a husband, you don't have kids, then it doesn't matter how much money you make, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. You're just alone with cats, right? So, I do agree that there needs to be a level of detachment to outcome, especially as a woman. We have put so much of our worth and so much of our value on whether or not we're married by a certain age, right? or whether we get remarried after a divorce. There's a lot of women, and myself, I was included in this for a while. It's like, I don't want to be a single mother because what man is going to want me? Well, I don't know if everybody realizes this yet. But there are men out there who maybe didn't get a family right away. Maybe they were focused on their success, and maybe it took them a while, but they will value that single mother if she happens to be the love of his life. And even if he's not quite ready for her yet, if he's like, I need to get things situated because there's just... Mars isn't the place you go to raise your kids. Rocket Man? Mars isn't the type of place you raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell. So it's like you got to do your stuff so that you can have a home ready, especially if you're going to suddenly step into that role. It makes sense. But you know, my stepsister, she has 2 beautiful kids and she doesn't want more. She's done. And she has recently found the love of her life. Like a couple of years back, she got into connection with him. And he's stepping up and he is doing a wonderful job. And I'm happy for her. And they're getting married. I don't know the exact date, but she did tell me over the summer. And I don't know if I'll go to the wedding or not because, I don't know what's going to be coming up. But even if I can't be there in person, we now have digital. So even if someone can't be there physically, even if they happen to be on a trip or they're not able to get to somebody right away, a digital presence still works. And part of the reason I have my channel is so that I have a digital presence out there. Because a digital presence these days is very important. Especially since you need to protect your energy and protect your light. And when you are holding out for true love, you have to recognize that your true love may need more time. And if you are coming from a place of, oh, they don't love me because they're taking too long, well, that in itself can put pressure on them. But when you detach, you're like, hey, I love you. You love me. And I know you love me. And I am standing for you. And I know that when you are done doing whatever it is that you need to do that has kept you away, your queen is here waiting for you. And she's not letting anybody else in the door. She knows it's you. And no matter how old we get, it's you. There is not going to be a younger model. There is not going to be anybody else who is making more money or is shinier, because it's the substance. And I spoke about this yesterday on Shopping for Success and Love, so you can check out that video as well. The thing you really need to know is that you need to love yourself more than you love your true love. You need to value yourself more. It's not they love me more than I love them. No, the love is equal. The love is infinity. It never ends. It's endless. It's eternal. And you also recognize what resources you can give. You recognize that that person deserves the best version of you. And so if you need to pull back and be like, you know what, I love you, I want to be with you, and right now I need to heal. I need to build up my resources. I need to be able to come in as my best self. I need to build up that trust with you to show you over time that I am for real because I know you've been hurt. Well, then you take that time. The love is not gone. Never left. You got your test of maybe 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. Building into the best version of yourself possible so that when it's time, when it's right, there is no waiting anymore. There is no more hesitation. You just go for it. And you know it's for you. And you know it's not ever going to be taken away. You know that that love is true. And then if they need to go and do something to take care of themselves, you're still there. You're not leaving. The love remains. Because love is the strongest force in the world. I mean, you don't even have to look at it in the realm of true love. If you love yourself more than you love your kids, well, that can hurt. And if you love your kids more than you love yourself, that also hurts. Because now you can't give anything to them because you can't pour from an empty cup. And if your cup is full only for yourself and you don't give anything to your kids because you only love yourself, can you see why a lot of the ways in the past might have contributed to a lot of pain for a lot of children growing up, who then perpetuated the same patterns in their own relationships? And then over time, as things changed and rules changed, we still stuck to those patterns because our parents told us that that was wise information that we needed to have. Yes, it was advantageous for a woman to make a man fall madly in love with her, even if she was not into him at all. It was absolutely advantageous. We couldn't survive. We were not allowed to read. We were not allowed to go to school. We were not allowed to work outside the home unless we were working in our husband's business. We weren't allowed to own property. If we spoke too loudly, we would get burned at the stake, called a witch. If we couldn't produce children, we were useless and we were tossed out on the streets. For a woman to survive, she had to depend on a man. And for a man to be able to get into his full power and not worry about the home or the kids, he needed to have a woman at home. But if he didn't love her, she was just a placeholder for his progeny, his heirs that he also often didn't care about because they were just a means to the end, something he could pass on his legacy to. Daughters that he could just use as bargaining chips, didn't care about them. If you really look at the way that society was run and why, can you see how that's not going to help us today? There are so many men that are complaining of loneliness and saying that women need to settle. And they're not actually asking the right question. And that is this: why aren't women settling anymore? Is it because we don't want children? We don't want husbands? Or is it because we always wanted those things? We always wanted a companion. We want to be able to have our legacy. And at the same time, we just don't want to perpetuate what's been done in the past. Our hearts are so open now, we don't want to go back. We've recognized that we are intelligent and we are just as good as a man. And we don't want to go back. We don't want to be married to some guy that we don't really love, who treats us like a trophy, and then he goes off and sleeps with the secretary once we're all dried up. And we certainly don't want to date somebody who thinks that a woman has no value after childbearing age, or no value if she is divorced, or no value if she's a single mother, or no value if she's over 25. Because, you know, some people think that a woman that's in her 30s can't even have children. No way. I have clients who came to me in their 40s and had natural births. Don't tell me that my eggs are all dried up. If I want another baby, I can have another baby. I'll tell you when my eggs are dried up, or when I'm no longer ready. And you know, that changes depending on the age of the woman and the way that she is taking care of herself. There's some women in their late 40s who can get pregnant naturally. Let's stop the stigmatization. And a woman in her 50s can be absolutely vibrant and beautiful. A woman in her 90s can be vibrant and beautiful. There are lots of beautiful women in their 90s. And there are men beside them that are like, I am so lucky to have her. Don't let society tell you true love doesn't exist. Don't let society tell you that just because you've reached a certain age that you're no longer valuable just as you are. That you have to be something other than who you really are. Yeah, absolutely. Show up as your best self. But do it for you. Do it for you, and your true love is going to appreciate it. I mean, yeah, I look really good on camera. And yeah, I know that my true love is probably going to, he sees me and he's going to be like, ooh. But I'm doing this for me. Because I like to look my best. And even when I don't feel like being all polished, I still look in the mirror and I just love it. I don't share for attention. I share because I love to share. In fact, I'd already done a video earlier today on my Facebook. It was the rule of 3. That'll be up later too. There's another one, I just love doing these. Just because. And I love to be with certain people just because. No agenda. So if you don't love spending time with someone and you're just there for for show, do you know how lonely that is? Why do women cheat? Because we're lonely. Because we know that the man that we're with isn't it. Some of us do it for revenge, the darker side of it. But often when we try to do it for revenge, it's empty and hollow. We can't always go through with it. There's just that immense guilt. Someone who doesn't value you, someone who doesn't love you, they can easily go elsewhere. Oh, you're not doing this fast enough? Okay, I'm out of here. Or they give you an ultimatum and they say, if you don't show me a little bit more commitment, I'm out of here. And they manipulate you into it, and you think that you can't lose them yet. And so you do something that you later regret. Or if you happen to suddenly be told, or it actually happens, you see it, that your house burns down, or you realize that you need to move somewhere and you need to survive. And there's a man who's right there, who's giving you all the attention, seems to love you more than you really love them yet right now. But even though you're gun shy, and even though you think that it's really not a good idea to commit right then, you do it because you need to survive. And you get into that relationship and you try to make it work. Or you take them back after you've already seen that it's not right, and you take them back. We always ask, why did she go back? She went back because of survival. Why didn't she leave all those years? Why did she stay with him if it was really that awful? Ask your grandmothers how hard it was to divorce back in the day. Just go look at history. Go look at the laws telling when women were allowed to own property, when they were allowed to vote. And you'll understand why that advice existed. Why we played the game for so long. But if you've seen from my other videos, we don't need to play the game anymore. Hold out for the most extraordinary person, the most extraordinary human being you have ever met. The one that lights that fire in you, that passion, that inspiration, the one that you're like, I love who I am when I'm with this person. Just seeing them, I can see my own magnificence reflected back from them. And I love my life. And I want to spend my life with this person. I want to spend every moment of my life loving myself and loving this person. And I want them to have everything. They deserve it, and I deserve it. And life is not worth living if you can't share it with someone who can even know you better than you know yourself and brings out that greatness in you and may show you your shadows so that you can transcend them, who is always standing for you, even when they have to put some distance to either work on themselves or to get you to see just how much you stand to lose if you do not transcend that shadow that is holding you back. Because any darkness can be overcome. Anything can be overcome when it's true love. Now I'm going to go and take a nap. I kept waking up in the middle of the night, and I had some pretty interesting dreams again. And I mean, I don't mind it, but at the same time, I'm tired. So I think I'm going to go and get a little bit of sleep so that I can show up as my best mom self to my kids later. And then tomorrow I've got the whole day off. Not exactly sure how I'm going to spend it. I know how I'd like to spend it. I've been doing these little exercises just in case something happened where I got a message and there's a plan in place. And I like to just pretend that I'm in that moment. I write in future, present tense, as if it's already happening, as if it's happening right in front of me. And I just explore that. And there's been a few exercises. I keep taking the same prompt and I just keep rewriting it over and over and over again. Because it changes from day to day. I have different things that I do on different days. So tomorrow is wide open. And I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow. But I've got a whole weekend all to myself too. Which, I mean, if things unfolded the way that I've put them in my fantasies, could be a pretty good weekend. It's even kind of an anniversary of sorts. So it'd be like the perfect timing. But again, all in perfect timing. Sometimes the things that we want to happen might take a little bit longer than we like, and that's where the rule of 3 comes in. 3 days, 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes a while to collect all the data. Sometimes it takes a while once you have the data to work through your fears and get what you really want. But it's certainly better than being with someone who you love way more than they love you, who could drop you at any moment because you're just not it for them. You're not the most extraordinary person to them. But you are to someone. And once you have that someone, you'll suddenly see just how magical you have always been. And all the things that other people told you were too much or not enough, you'll suddenly realize what a lie that was. It was a way to keep you playing the game. It was a way to keep you following the same patterns, the same structures and systems that really don't serve anyone anymore. Because we're not in survival mode anymore. We're powerful. And you won't know how powerful you are until you face that darkness and say, this darkness will not stop me. I deserve more out of life. I deserve the best. Why not the best, right? Why settle for less when you can have the best? All right. I'm going to go and rest, as I said. But I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.